What's going on, everyone? Welcome back along to the channel. Another week has passed in its mind, which means one thing only, and it is time for another Super Rugby preview show. We are having a look forward to round number 13. We have a special guest lined up, which we will be meeting very, very soon. But first things first here, this week's episode, we're going to be having a look at SuperBru and things like that first by ourselves, because, well, our guest isn't good enough to join us on SuperBru. No. So we'll just do it by ourselves, and we've got a special wee surprise too for you out there who do follow the channel and have watched all these episodes. So stay tuned, that'll be coming very, very soon. But first things first, I wanted to show you guys how I went in round number 12. So let's go here to the results screen and have a look at my results from the round of 12. And we started off with the Chiefs obviously losing to the Jaguares, which didn't help me at all. I didn't get any points for that one whatsoever. So we'll move down here to the Crusaders and the Rebels. So we picked up that one, which was nice. I mean, 99% to 1, always going to happen. Didn't get the margin point there, but that's okay. Off to a better start there. Now we start to get going with the Canes versus the Lions. Now we got the win point and the margin point on that one. Predicted it to win by 7. They won by 9. So I was pretty happy. Back on track in a good way there from the third game. Then we went with the Blues and the Waratahs. This one was tight. I mean, this was a great game, wasn't it? But picked it perfectly. Almost. Off by 1. Picked them to win by 2. They won by 3, didn't they? So 24-21, but picked up the margin point and the win point on that one as well, which I was very, very happy about. Then, next game, Stormers versus the Bulls. This one I just picked up the win point. I predicted it by 3, they won by 12. Who would have thought that was going to happen? But alas, a good round was ensuing for me following these matches. Of course, we won't talk too much about that one, but what we will talk about is overall where I sat after those rounds. And we can see here is the leaderboard, and it was Smarty Highlanders fan who picked up the yellow cap. The scumbag that he is, 6.5 points, and then 4th. I got 2nd last week by a tiny little margin. This week 4th, and it seems I'm destined to never get the yellow cap. No matter what I do, I just never get that damn yellow cap. So you know what? There's a reason it's a bit dull on here, because I mean, yellow is not a colour that's too conducive to light, but I've solved the problem. SuperBru, you're not going to give me the yellow cap. I'm not good enough to get the yellow cap from you guys. Cornflake will never have that yellow cap beside his name, but you know what Cornflake will have? Cornflake will have the yellow cap, and he will have it on his head. Times are changing, my friends. The yellow cap is here, and it's here to stay forever. We talked about it last week with Brett. It's happened. Now, the yellow card is here. And I don't care what you're saying. I've got the yellow cap. I'm the best picker. And that's the end of the story. So we're going to be going yellow cap on head. I'm finding one of myself. I had to buy it. But I've done enough. I've done enough finally. So we can see these are the results from the last round. Driving Moore did very, very well, picking up 5.5, but I don't really care about him because it's all about the yellow cap, which, damn you, Smarty Highlanders fan, it's on my head, okay? It's on my head. Let's go on. Let's celebrate. Here's a look at how the table looks after 12 rounds. Driving Moore, he's resumed his spot at the top. With another great round, 70.75 he sits on. The yellow cap winner, not me, the other one, the slightly darker coloured one, but my one looks more beautiful. Sits in 2nd, popping up 1 spot, Smarty Highlanders fan, into the number 2 position. Anti-Podl 49er drops down 2 from top spot to 3rd. He's only a couple of points behind, so he's not completely gone. Our nut is back as well, jumping up a couple of spots into 4th. But all of you guys, I mean, you guys watch this and you see where you are. Damn you, Caleb, you're still there on 15th as well, rising up quite nicely. The Stig and B Commentary doing a good job as well. Christian's there, rising up another 6. We've got the Sandman, who comes on quite frequently on the channel as well, jumping up 2 to 20th position. We make our way down. There we go. 3rd, yeah, look at that. I was 50th 2 weeks ago. 2 outstanding rounds by the Flake. Deserves the yellow cap, I think, 100%, has raced up to 38th. Look out, top 10. I'm coming for you. And you're not taking my yellow cap either. It's all mine. It is all mine. So, I mean, a couple of weeks ago when we had Brett on, we were talking, oh, the big battle's on between Brett and Cornflake. Oh, this is it. Well, I'm sorry to say, Mr. Brett Whitke on in the next couple of weeks as well. But you've been passed by Gerbs. Oh, Brett, you're going down even further, my friend. 50.5 points, down in 53rd. Not where you want to be. A lot of these guys way down the bottom. Who got the wooden spoon? I didn't see the wooden spoon. Here he goes. It's Tynan Wernke. Very bizarre name, but he picks up the wooden spoon. Down 10 spots and still ahead of me. By 2, which is disappointing. But that is the leaderboard, and here is your yellow cap winner. Finally, I've got it. SuperBru, you thought you could stop me. You can't stop this. Okay, so let's have a look at the leaderboard for the Fantasy League. I mean, there's yellow caps here too, but this is not the one I want. The lead hasn't changed. I mean, I watch this and I see MFCFO's Blues right there in 4th. They are chasing as they look to regain their crown. But B Coventry side is really doing it right at the moment. They have a lead of about 15 points over Sticky Toilet Actions, who are doing a great job as well. And the Mules in 3rd, keeping just track of it. Down quite a bit though. A good, what would you say? Gee, over 100 points in there, just about 106, 140 points, I'd say, roughly down from 2nd. The Blues, of course, ones you got to watch out for. They definitely are talented guys. Where is the battle? Here's Caleb. Oh, you scumbag. He's got 2 yellow caps in a row. One on the Predictor, now one on the Fantasy team. But it's not this, is it, Caleb? You don't have this. You don't have it. It's mine. It's my yellow cap. You're not taking it away. I will forever be #1 picker. So stick that where you want. The All Flakes jump up a couple of spots. I mean, I'm doing better in this, and I'm hardly paying much attention into 31st, and Brett comes up 1 as well into 33rd. We're doing all right. We're doing all right. Wooden spoon, I suspect, will be right down the bottom. As it is, you don't make picks. You're going to get the wooden spoon, and you're going to get it whacked around your head as well. So there we go. SuperBru done and dusted. I mean, a lot of big news. This is why I wanted to wrap it up first, because it's here. We talked about it. It's being delivered. The yellow cap is where it belongs. Light yellow doesn't mix and look like I had a white hat. So we're a bit darker here for the intro, but that's fine. As long as you can see the yellow cap, that's all that matters, okay? That is all that matters. Loving things at the moment. Yellow cap is home, and we are chugging our way up the leaderboard in the SuperBru Predictor League. So make sure you get your picks in for this weekend's action. One more thing to cover before we go on to meet our guests and have a look at this weekend's matches. It is, of course, yellow cards heading into this weekend. And from the rounds so far, 12 rounds have been completed, and we have, we had quite a few yellow cards in round 12 as well. I think we're 49 last round, so we're up to 56 now. So 7 yellow cards in round number 12 is a good number to get a good boost from as well. But, I mean, 2017, we're almost at 100. We're on 97. So 56 is a long way from 97, but we did have a good round of yellow cards in round 12. Round 13, maybe bring some more. Who really knows what's going to happen? But let's have a look into it. We've got a good guest lined up who's going to have, I think, a good old right royal ding-dong chat about the matches coming up. Let's get on to it. Okay, so getting into the matchups, let's first introduce our guest onto the show for this weekend's preview. And it's taken a while. It's been hard work. But finally, we've got him back coming to the preview. TheScottishCannon, welcome back finally to the channel.
Hello, it's been a while. We're both very busy at the moment. So it's just, we've tried for weeks to try and align schedules, but today's the day.
It's the day. Finally, it's happened. Finally, we can talk about the Waratahs, who are the third match.
The Waratahs.
So we'll quickly...
Yeah, I don't know.
What were you going for the worry tars?
I was going to say the horror tars.
Horror tars. You're going for the wobblies on the worry tars. Oh, goodness me. So, we got full 7 games to go through this weekend, and only the Jaguares have the bye. So, we're going to be missing those guys out. and having a look at these matches. So we start off, Eden Park is game number 1. The Blues are up against the Hurricanes. The Blues won last weekend, as you well know as well, from your Waratahs, as you like to call them. A little bit of confidence for them, which is always good, but realistically, if anything, that only does show us the big split between New Zealand and Australia at the moment. I mean, this isn't really about the Blues, but we're going to start it off here because you're on the channel, so why the hell not? Is the gap between Australia and New Zealand getting bigger, or do you think it's actually getting closer?
No idea. It's absolutely ridiculous. 38 matches in a row. It'll probably end up hitting the half-century by the end of the year at this rate. I don't see the Waratahs beating the Crusaders this weekend. Don't see them beating the Highlanders at home. The Reds are probably the only team that have any opportunity to beat a New Zealand team for the rest of the season. But I don't know. It's absolutely mental. There's deep ingrained problems within high performance in Australia. Sure, the New Zealand teams are playing as best as they ever have been, but is that because Australia and South Africa have gone backwards, or is that because New Zealand have gotten better? I would say it's probably a combination of the two. New Zealand has not looked better in a long time. Obviously that All Black form is incredible at the moment. Got the Crusaders, one of the best teams in the world. You've got the Highlanders, one of the best teams in the world. The Hurricanes, one of the best teams in the world. 3 of the best clubs in the world playing consistently against Australian Super Rugby teams when it's one of our worst teams, player talent pool in years. So it's just because we don't have any stars coming through at the moment. We've got 4 very inexperienced coaches, 6 years in between the 4 professional coaches here in Australia. We all know Darryl Gibson is doing mediocre things for the Waratahs. Brad Thorne's going to take a couple of years before he has any effect. Dan McKellar with the Brumbies, don't really know what he's trying to achieve down there. Brumbies haven't looked worse, and the Pocock effect really hasn't done much either. And the Rebels, Dave Wessels, who's been around, obviously, with the Force, who came second in the Strength Conference last year. But what the hell's happened to the Rebels? I'm sure we'll talk about them, but what the hell has happened? We're looking so good at the start of the year, and then we started playing the international teams.
I mean, that's the end of the Super Rugby preview show. Thanks for joining us. Everything's been covered. Look at the Blues though, because they're the team in action. What gave them that edge over the Waratahs? Were the Waratahs that bad, or do you think the Blues actually had something over them?
No, the Waratahs are terrible. If you saw the stat, 72% territory to the Waratahs and 62% possession to the Waratahs? Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. The Waratahs lost the game for themselves, made some very stupid decisions. Now, I keep talking about this on Twitter. The intelligence of the average Super Rugby player in Australia compared to the average Super Rugby player in New Zealand is probably a 20 IQ gap or something. I don't know if Australian rugby teams just don't trust what's in front of them. I think they rely too much on structure. Obviously, the Australian way and the Australian way of playing rugby for years was structure is going to win your game. So you stay in the structure, you're going to win. But you can clearly see that teams are too structured nowadays, that teams don't really think for themselves, or individual players don't really think for themselves. And there's no attacking threat. I mean, the Blues played great, but the first try they scored was one of the worst I've ever seen the Waratahs concede. You had Israel Folau at the back, pick it up from a ball that barely stayed in the play from Augustine Pulu, kicking it ahead. Passes it to Bernard Foley, who passes it awfully to Kurtley Beale, who knocks the ball on, and Kira Ioane goes in. One of the easiest tries he'll ever score. And, I don't know. The decision-making of the Waratahs are terrible, but the Blues just show you that you can't be awful for 2 seconds against the New Zealand side. If you are dumb or if you make a stupid decision in attack or defense, you're going to pay for it. And there's not many teams in the world outside of New Zealand that are going to make you pay more for your errors than a Kiwi side. So it just really shows that the decision-making of Aussie teams was ridiculously bad, and the New Zealand teams are clinical in every single facet of the game.
What a sum up. Perfect. We'll move straight off the Blues now. We'll look at the Hurricanes. I mean, it's been so long, so we've got so much to catch up on about these teams. But the Hurricanes, I mean, this is a big 5 points for them. Most people, I mean, there's someone here that's put $100,000 on the Hurricanes to actually win this game versus the Blues at the TAB. big, ridiculous amounts of money.
What, $1.20 or something?
Yeah, something
$1.10?
pathetically stupid like that. But, I mean, the table's pretty close. I mean, with the Hurricanes, the Crusaders, are the Hurricanes still up there with one of the favourites for you to take this competition out?
They're still my favourite. I'm still...
The favourite.
The favourite. I said at the start of the competition, the Hurricanes are going to win the Super Rugby competition 2018. I am staying to that. People are like, oh, they lost their opening game in South Africa. The Hurricanes are horrible this season. Yeah, look what's happened now. Are they, 8 or 9 matches in a row? What? They've lost that first match of the season. Who's another team they lost to? They only lost one match.
I'm pretty sure they've only lost one match. The Crusaders have lost 2, the Highlanders and the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
The Hurricanes have only lost 1-2 that opening match against the Bulls.
The Bulls, yeah. Yes. So, look at their side. 2 Barrett brothers. You've got Ben Lamb, who's playing exceptional rugby. Do you think he's going to be at All Black this year?
I mean, I just did a video about who's going to be in the All Blacks this year. I don't think so. I don't think there's enough room. When you look at the outside backs that they've got, Ben Smith, Geordie Barrett, Naholo, I've gone blank as who the other ones were. Rico Ioane. Akira's the back row.
I was thinking of Rico Ioane.
But you're only going to pick probably 5
Julian Savia.
No, he's gone. But I think they're going to go with a guy like Milner Scudder as opposed to a Ben Lamb, just because of the point difference that he offers the team, rather than Ben Lamb is very much like a Rico Ioane. So you're going with like for like in that case. So that's what I think about them. But overall, this Hurricanes backline, you've talked about already, is ridiculously good. And if Ben Lamb does that next year, then he could be well on track to maybe being a bolter into a Rugby World Cup. Who really knows? But
you wouldn't bring in a rookie as an All Black winger for the World Cup, surely.
Well, I mean, Israel Dag.
Yeah, he's still there, but
no. But I'm talking 2011. Mills Muliaina was the incumbent 15. Israel Dag was a nobody. Come in by the end of the World Cup, he was the starting 15. It happens.
Fair enough.
But yes, you're right. It's a ballsy call and unlikely to happen, to be fair. Yeah, definitely. Right.
Yeah.
Blues.
You again, Israel Dag still in that back 3 as well. I mean, too much talent, too many wingers. Can we have a few? Our best wingers at the moment, Taliki Naiovaro, who's going over to England, so he's leaving Australia. Marika Korobeti's mediocre. Sefa Naivalu's mediocre. You had Edson Bully leave this year. You've got Cam Clark on one wing. Where is the Australian wingers? Terrible. Absolutely no wingers. Henry Spate is mediocre as well. Australia's got no wingers.
It's a bad time to be an Australian rugby fan. Hey, and that Clark guy's not so bad. He showed some wheels on the weekend. You got to him. He's pretty young.
I think. Well, do you think that was a try?
Yeah, that's a hard one, isn't it? Because was he really held? They reckon on replays that his hand was on his foot. I mean, does that constitute being? You're the referee. Is that held? Would you rule that held?
I would have called it held. I think he got it right, but. I would have gone to the video referee. He could have gone to the video referee in that situation. If you're in that situation, but he trusted his instinct. We got along with the match. Fair enough. People like seeing that sort of refereeing. So, 50-50 call, but probably the right one.
I don't think anyone really disagreed too much with it. It was one of those ones that if they allowed it, you'd move on. He didn't allow it. Okay, let's go on for it. So, but I mean, it could have been a decisive part of that match as well. It could have really open the door for the Waratahs, or if he did score it, it would have shut the door on the Waratahs completely as well. But Eden Park, as we were at for this game 1, we're still in game 1. Blues, Hurricanes, who's your winner? What's your margin?
Hurricanes by 10 points. Blues would be feeling more confident, but they've lost 10 New Zealand derbies in a row. Is that more?
It's 2 years or something, yeah.
Yeah, it's about ridiculous. The same as the Australian Super Rugby team.
Pretty much.
Who's going to break the drought first? The Blues or Australian Super Rugby sides? We've got 4 teams, and anyway, I'm sure we'll get more into Australia bashing in a second, but the Hurricanes by 10 points or so.
Yeah, I've gone the Hurricanes as well. I've gone them by 19 points, so I've gone a bit more of a thrashing. Yeah, a bit more confidence, but I think ultimately we're going to see the golf and class here between these two sides, and the Blues will be put back in their place down the bottom of the table where they belong. Right, let's go to game 2. Sunwolves, here we go. We're getting into Australia. Sunwolves are playing the Reds. Prince Shishibu Memorial Stadium. That is in Japan. I I mean, we'll talk about the Reds first because I missed out them last week because they had the bye. So they're back on the road. Australian team, probably you have to say the most impressive of the Australian teams so far in the competition.
As of recently, yeah. As of the last month, yeah.
Do you put that down to Brad Thorne?
Well, Brad Thorne, but again, there's been a lot of talk over here in Australia about Brad Thorne's overall sort of thoughts, what he's doing with Craig Cooper, keeping him in club rugby, cleaning out the swamp. You're going to see Brad Thorne have an effect in the short to medium term and even the long term with the Reds. And it's great to see some of the younger talent coming through with the Reds. And they'll reach some good potential. I think that the win over the Lions was one of the biggest upsets of the Super Rugby season so far. I don't know what percentage of players in SuperBru chose the Reds over the Lions. 2% or something?
Yeah, something tiny like that, yeah.
Just shows you that the Reds can win. And they played the typical Australian style of rugby that game. Structure, got their discipline down packed and didn't give away stupid penalties like the Waratahs did against the weekend. And just kept at it. Stayed in the match the entire game. And, well, they were their head. But after 40 minutes, they sort of loaded off around at the end against the Lions. But they had a 60-minute performance, got up 27 or 29-0, and they had the game in the bag. So they just switched off. But shows you Brad Thorne is doing some great work up there. And I really do like the up-and-coming backs coming through. Hamish Stewart, the Reds fly half, is doing some great stuff, better than John O'Lance. So it's really good to see the talent coming through in the Reds. And it does come down to Brad Thorne's culture-driven approach, which does take some time to really see the benefits of.
Do you think the Wallabies are going to pick a lot of this Reds team? Look forward to next year?
I reckon you've got to sort of have to. But at the same time, Michael Check has already brought in so many new players of the last 2 years that the Wallabies, just like New Zealand, need to start nailing down combinations, just like England need to start nailing down combinations. If you keep going to interchange the 12 and 13 in Australia and shuffle around the back three, you're never going to have a consistent side. You're never going to be able to build a squad that is going to be competitive at the Rugby World Cup. And being in Australia's got a somewhat easy pull at the World Cup, but as soon as you get the quarterfinals against England, France, or Argentina, you're going to be challenged. So the Wallabies need to start building some consistency. And at least Michael Check is pretty much the only good coach in Australia at the moment.
Ooh, okay, that's a bit cool. Talk about Sunwolves, though. They're going to be at home. They're coming back from the bye as well. Their season's obviously over. They haven't won a game all year. No. But do you think this is their biggest chance of the year? Do you think they've even got a chance versus the Reds?
I would have... If the Rebels were going up to Tokyo at this sort of time this season, I reckon they would have been in for a shot. It's a danger game for the Reds. The Reds could loiter off and go, we've had a week off and we're going against the worst team in the competition. We're going to enjoy some sushi in Tokyo. And then, we're already behind by 21 points to 0. Because the Sunwolves can do that to you. They can score points very, very quickly. It's just they concede a ton of points as well. So, it's probably going to be a high-scoring affair. You might see a 50-30 scoreline or a 40-25 scoreline or something. Reds will come out with the win. If they don't, there will be questions asked of Brad Thorne. Why are you beating the Lions but losing to the bloody Sunwolves? And then shit's going to start hitting the fan.
I don't think the Sunwolves are going to win this game, I should say, in the pack. I think that's where it's going to be decided. I think the Reds are going to have that forward dominance over the Sunwolves, which will ultimately just guide them to it should be a pretty easy victory. I've got the Reds by 10. How many are you going by?
I'll go 15.
Well, we go for even bigger. But I do agree with what you say. There's a potential banana skin for any team going over there, but especially a young team like the Reds. Like you say, they could switch off if they're not on their game as well. So both going with the Reds. I think we've copied each other so far, which is a bit of a concern. Okay, this is the one we're going to talk about probably the most. Crusaders versus the Waratahs. Your team, the Waratahs, I mean, I don't know how much you've got to say on them, what you want to say on them, but let's face the facts here. They're on a run of playing 3 New Zealand teams in a row. Yeah. Their lead in the Australian Conference is just 4 points. Yeah. The Rebels are playing local derby matches against other Australian Conference teams. Do the Waratahs face any chance of taking points from New Zealand, or are they going to start falling down the ladder?
Well, I think you need to also point out that the Rebels are not doing anything as well. They've only won 4 of, 10 matches or something, 11 matches. Thing with the Rebels is they got 4 bonus point wins, so they've always been around the top of the Australian Super Rugby conference. You need to watch for the Brumbies and you need to watch for the Reds because they will start coming up. I reckon the Reds are in with a good shout here because they've got a lot of home matches still to go. They've got the Sunwolves. They've got the Waratahs at home in a few weeks' time, and they'll start clawing away at that lead. Watch out for the Reds because I think they will be within a shot of the top of the Australian Conference if Brad Thorne continues his good form. For the Waratahs, yeah, it's very difficult because they're not going to win this match against the Crusaders. Then following week, you've got the Highlanders, which the Waratahs always have trouble beating. And then you're back over in New Zealand against the Chiefs, I think, or is it Hurricane? I think it's the Chiefs.
Let's see.
I think it's the Chiefs. But
Crusaders, then the Highlanders, and then they wrap up against the Chiefs. You are correct.
Yeah. So, again,
and then they face the Reds.
Yeah. So that could decide the top of the Australian Conference if we assume that the Aussie sides are going to lose every single match to New Zealand for the rest of the competition or the rest of the season. I think the Waratahs will still top the Aussie Conference. I mean, the Aussie Conference is too easy at the moment. That they've still got a match against the Sunwolves. They've still got a match against the Brumbies at home. Still got the Reds. So they've still got very winnable matches within Australia. And ultimately, if you want to make the finals, you just got to top the conference. So Sunwolves are out of it. Brumbies aren't going to do anything. It comes down to if the Rebels can get their act together at the moment. I don't think they can. Will the Reds start clawing up the ladder? I reckon they will. Will they go all the way to the top? They've got to start winning games outside of the occasional South African match, and they've got to start winning Aussie derbies because they're having trouble with that. For the Waratahs, too many problems on the field and off the field. Israel Folau is still an ongoing issue. I loved your tweet during the week saying, what was your tweet? Saying something like, shut up, Israel Folau or something?
No, it was a bit more long-winded than that. Far more long-winded than that. Pretty much, without exactly knowing what it said, it was along the lines of, okay, here we go. Believe in what you like is no matter to me. Some beliefs you have to keep to yourself. What he says has no benefit, it only offends people. Does he not understand his position to the public and to the media in the PC world and the effects it has? Makes you wonder what his ambitions are, making headlines for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a complete farce over here. You've got the morning TV show host, which are some of the biggest stars in Australia, absolutely crucifying Folau for what his conduct. Absolutely ridiculous at the moment, and I can tell you, being involved within the entire situation and within the editorials and within articles in Australia, my God, you cannot believe some of the crap that's coming out of Australia at the moment in terms of off-field rugby issues. You also had Nick Phipps the week before getting fined $4,000 for pissing on a bar in a cow suit. If that doesn't say the state of Australian rugby at the moment, I don't know what will. And yeah, so off-field issues, put that to the side. You've got 38 matches in a row, lost to New Zealand sides. If we put that again to the side, we've got the Wallabies playing the best team in Europe. Might get clean streak 3-0. Moving on past that, we've got the Rugby Championship. New Zealand again. Is there any light at the end of the Australian rugby tunnel, Cornflake? Looking at it from afar.
No, I don't see any light. All you can hope for is that they get a bit of continuity when they come under the yellow jumper, or the green and gold as they call it. I mean, that's all you can hope for. I mean, when the Waratahs top the table and they look as disorganised and disorientated and wayward as they did, especially last weekend, you've got to question what could possibly be any worse than that. I mean, what do you blame the most? Is it coaching or the player communication and their connectivity together, or the way that they play, the style of game? What is your take on the big thing that is really holding back Australian rugby right now, especially the Waratahs?
So I've already ranted a couple of times about Daryl Gibson. He's not a head coach, is he?
No.
we've gone over this for a couple of seasons now. Nothing in the first season after taking over from Michael Checker, who led the Waratahs to a Super Rugby Championship and to a semi-final. Takes them out for a year. The year after that, I think they win 4 or 5 games. Year after that, they win 4 or 5 games. This year, won 5 games, but they're against easy Australian opposition. I mean, barely got over the line against the Stormers. Drove the Sharks very tough. They're losing to the Warriors when they're in absolute 6s and 7s at the start of the season. Then you've got close runs of it against the Brumbies and the Reds, and barely getting over the line. Well, destroying the Rebels in the second half. But I mean, what? I don't know. The coaching is a big factor. Again, this total reliance on Taliki Naiyaravoro and Israel Folau is really scary. I feel like Curtly Beale does create some magic, but Bernard Foley's done nothing. He's done nothing since 2015. He's just there because there's no one else coming through as a good 10 in Australia. Which other 10s do we have in Australia apart from someone who's playing club rugby in Queensland? Who? Can you name one? You've got, at the Brumbies, you've got Howard, who's
a New Zealander.
The New Zealander, 1 and 2, he's mediocre at best. You've got Jono Lance, who's playing for the Reds.
What about Lealiafano?
Yeah, but he's a 12. He's playing 12. So
he's still pretty average.
He's still pretty average. But you've got the likes of Matt Tumua playing overseas. You've got so many 10s and 12s playing overseas. It's ridiculous. Then at the Reds, you've got Jack Debreczini in the 10 jersey, who, again, is probably more of a 12 or 13. So where are the playmakers? Where is the 10? Where's the Stephen Larkham-like 10? Where is a 10 that like a Bonamere or Dan Carter or Owen Farrell, where Australia can rely on him to create something out of nothing. Bernard Foley is Mr. Consistency and Mr. Iceman. He doesn't really create much, which is very, really scary. And again, decision making. What are the Waratahs trying to do? It looks like they're playing a structured game, but the structured game is all over the place. It sort of doesn't look unstructured. It doesn't make any sense. But when you have 18 phases on the Blues line, you keep going to the forwards, and then Curtly Beale, who thought we had penalty advantage, goes through a kick across field to Israel Folau. How else are you going to score a try? What, you're just going to pass it to Taliki Naiyaravoro or Israel Folau? I mean, what else can I say here? I don't know.
Oh yeah, you said plenty. I mean, that's why we're all here. That's why we're all here. We want to hear the rage and anger of an Australian rugby fan.
Mate, after last week's loss to the Waratahs, the Blues to the Waratahs, I literally had to take about 15 minutes to calm myself down because I was pissed. It's like if Scotland lost to New Zealand by a point, how pissed I was at that point. Ridiculous. It shows you that Super Rugby can still engage the fans because I was engaged in that match. I cared more about the Waratahs in this match against the Blues than I had since 2015. Shows you that there's still a lot of people that care about rugby in Australia and the Waratahs. But don't give us crap. Don't give us rubbish where there's nothing to support because we see, all you do is pass it to Taliki Naiyaravoro or Ned Hannigan gives one of the stupidest penalties away ever, trying to attack the jumper twice or 3 times in a row. I mean, where is the rugby brain of the average Australian rugby player at the moment? I don't know.
What you're really wanting was to break that 37 at the time game streak. That was what it was all about. That was the big thing about that game.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, I put it on Twitter. I don't know what was worse, losing to the Kings in Sydney or losing to the Blues.
I still think the Kings is probably worse.
Yeah, I reckon so as well.
Oh, jeez. Okay, have we covered enough about the Waratahs? Have you got that all out of your system?
You got anything to add? Do you think they just look like absolute chumps? Or
I think they're getting worse as the season's gone on. I remember we did an earlier round. Was it 3, 4, 5 or so along there? And that was when they held on or they snuck back for that draw against the Sharks. And they actually looked like a team that could stay in a game and play 80 minutes, and I gave them credit for that. I thought that was a good sign for them. But the season's worn on, and even in that game against the Blues, when they were within 7 points of taking the lead, I thought they could have actually possibly done it, because given the way they played early in the season. But what I spoke about last week in the preview before that game is the mental situation of Australian rugby as a whole, but the Waratahs ultimately, because that pressure, you notice throughout that game, they struggled to actually take the lead. They got close, but they never
trust themselves.
Well, that's probably a big thing too.
This is a New Zealand team. They are very good at rugby. How can we beat a New Zealand team? But at the same time, you would have never have thought the Wallabies would have beaten the All Blacks last year. No one thought that in Brisbane. Somehow they got to win. Is that the Michael Checker effect? Is that because Michael Checker ingrains it into the Wallaby players? You can beat New Zealand. You can win a rugby match if you do this. Or you can win a rugby match if you trust in the process and you trust within your own decision-making. I don't know. I just think Daryl Gibson, he's had a couple of years. He's had 2.5 years. Waratah's severely underperforming. Is there anyone else in Australia that could take the reins and really make an impact and turn the season around? Maybe it takes a while after the coaching structural changes in Australia. I don't know. It's pretty bad. And I don't know how long the average rugby fan in Australia can hold on with this New Zealand hoodoo over our heads. It's ridiculous.
Why do they have to get an Australian coach? Why can't they look outside of Australia?
Well, that's the thing. Do you look at an Englishman and maybe say, this is England are so renowned for their structure. If you want to play with structure, get an Englishman in. Or do you want to actually play the typical style of Australian game? Don't have a Kiwi who was a good player, but clearly is an assistant coach and not a head coach. Same with Dan McKellar, assistant coach compared to Stephen Larkham. He hasn't done anything with the Brumbies. And when they were playing the Crusaders, 15 players on 13, do you think they scored a try?
No tries.
5 meter scrum. They've got a 3-man overlap on the left-hand side, on the open side. Go to Henry Spate's wing down the blind side and get turned over from there. When it's 1-on-1. Do you think that's smart?
No, that's what I mean. It's mental. It's all mental. And that's the biggest block. That's the biggest hurdle. I don't know if it's 100% all talent, but I think it's definitely 99% mental that they're struggling with. They know they can play. They know what their structures are. They know their game plans. But when they think about the possibility that this try could put us in the lead, that's when they fall apart. That's when everything just completely collapses, and then confidence goes, heads drop, everything goes south, and then ultimately that's game over for them.
Exactly right.
But that's Australia. We've covered most of Australian rugby. I think we've gone on for ages on that. So let's go on. We are still talking about the Super Rugby, but how can we deny a chance to talk about the Waratahs in Australia like that? So they are playing the Crusaders. I mean, you've talked about the Hurricanes still being your favourites to win the competition, but you think the Crusaders are going to be there still in a shout the way they're going at the moment?
Of course. I mean, if you destroy the Rebels, the Crusaders made the Rebels look like children in that second half last weekend. There was 13-10 at halftime, ends up being 55 points to 10. 55 points to 10. I don't know what else to say in terms of the clinicalness of New Zealand, the ability to score tries, the capacity to get over the line when necessary, to stay in the match and then run away with it in the second half. The Crusaders can do it all. They're doing it without Kieran Reid. They were doing it without half of their front row. I think is Joe Moody back this week, so he'll make a good impact in the scrum there. Crusaders still they've got the not the most star-studded team in New Zealand. Obviously, the Hurricanes are, but they got the coaching, they've got the mindset, and they know what to do, so they can win any match at any given stage. But I do still think they're not as good as the Hurricanes.
So what makes it worse for the Waratahs is they are away. This is at Christchurch. I can't see anything but a big Crusaders win here. I've got them by 18, but I think that might even be conservative. Are you going bigger?
I reckon it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think last last year in Sydney was something like 50-35 or something. The Crusaders got over the Waratahs. Be the same sort of scoreline here unless the New Zealand weather kicks in. We'll go something like 40-26 to the Crusaders, so like 14-point margin.
Sweet. All right, let's move on. Next match of the round. Highlanders back from South Africa. They're up against the Lions, so not changing their opposition much. Forsyth Bar sees a return to their home team. Highlanders back from South Africa. We know all about that. But I think the tour started off, game against the Bulls, fantastic. They played with great determination, great heart, amazing. Against the Sharks last week, they were woefully bad. And I think coming back and seeing a South African team and the Lions waiting for them, despite the way the Lions tour has fallen apart completely, probably is going to have a bit of a lasting effect on the team as well. They looked tired in that last match. They looked like all their resources were put into that first game versus the Bulls. And now they've got to fly all the way home from Africa and go straight up against the Lions. Do you think they're going to be a bit short of the 100% mark for this match?
I think this is a game of the round outside of the Bulls Sharks game, which we'll get into. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the Highlanders played some great rugby in patches, but you can also see that they can self-destruct as well. They actually barely got over the line against the Bulls as well. We've got to remember it was a penalty goal after the siren to win it, after a dumb penalty given away in the midfield. So shows you that South Africa has improved their game going into 4, but it also shows you the Highlanders aren't incredible. They're a good side. They're a very good side, but they're not the best New Zealand side. And I think they are going to find it very difficult against a very good Lions outfit. Sure, the Lions have had an interesting tour, let's say. Obviously putting the Waratahs to the absolute sword in their first week. They're losing to the Reds and getting dismantled by the Hurricanes. But I think it's a game they think they can win because of the travel factor, because of how the Highlanders overall are sort of playing. They're scoring some remarkable tries, but the defense is not as good as it could be either. So, yeah, I reckon the Lions are in for a shot here.
Yeah, the Lions, they're kind of at the opposite side of things. The Highlanders have just come home. The Lions, they're going to be wanting to go home because their tour has been, like you say, they smashed the Tars and it was all rosy. It was like, the Lions team are back. But then they've gone pretty south, like you just mentioned. Those 3 matches afterwards are not good for them. And now further compounding that fact is they're going to be without Malcolm Marx this weekend, who suffered an injury in the last round.
He is top 3 best players in the world at the moment, Malcolm Marx.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
And that's going to blow their pack even further, I think. So it's going to come down to a big part of who's going to want it more, who's going to be less or more into this match than the other, who's going to be half asleep. But the Lions, can you see the Lions playing consistently bad games in a row? I struggle to see them playing 2, but this could possibly be 4 games in a row. Do you think they've got to improve sooner or later?
Well, Lions have had a very interesting Super Rugby comp. They almost lost to the Sunwolves, if you remember that match.
Yeah, they did.
They won by 2 points. But then they beat the Tars 29-0. I don't know. The Lions can be similar to the Highlanders in some respects. So I reckon the Highlanders will just pip it here. Malcolm Marx being out is a huge blow. And they've got a ton of injuries, the Lions as well. So I hope they win and beat New Zealand, because it's always great seeing the New Zealand side lose, especially in New Zealand. But yeah, it's very hard to see because the back at Forsyth Bar, in front of a very rowdy bunch of 18 to 23-year-olds, the Highlanders will be having some fun.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. I've gone the Highlanders by just 4. So I'm predicting a close game as well. And I can see this game is probably going to die out as it wears on. You're looking 60 to 80 minutes. It's probably going to be pretty low quality level of game as well, with both teams probably pretty much ready to go home. But yeah, you think it's going to be a close one like that?
Yeah, 2 points. Highlanders.
2 points. Oh, so going even closer than me on that one as well. Right, well, we've talked a lot about Australian rugby already, but let's dive into it a little bit more. The Brumbies are hosting the Rebels, GIO Stadium. Brumbies are coming back from the bye. Now, the Rebels are only 1 week back from South Africa as well, and then they got smashed, obviously, like you said, by the Crusaders. But what's interesting is that the Rebels actually won the first meeting between these two sides back in round 4, if I'm not mistaken, 33 points to 10. Are these two sides, you think, anywhere similar to what the two sides were that met way back in round 4?
No. So Rebels completely hit the fan. Don't know why. I don't. I should ask you why. Why are the Rebels completely gone to shit? They were top of the table first 4 or 5 weeks. Sure, it was against Aussie sides. Why are they completely gone to crap when they're a merge of the Force, who played great rugby last year, and the Rebels, who had a ton of talent in that Rebel side last year, and then you got players like Jeff Parley and Will Genia coming back. I mean, what's up with the Rebels?
Well, I think they started off so well just because they had a very, very, very nice and easy start to the season. They probably had the best start they could possibly have. Well, points-wise they did, but in terms of the fixtures list, that they couldn't have asked for anything better given the limitations of who they had to play. Genia is massive to this team. You know by playing that him on the field means they are capable of producing something. Him off the field, Ruru comes on and he is just nothing in the calibre of a Guinea at all. You might as well put a prop out there. It's just about that bad. But I don't rate. I think he's been terrible. The team drops off massively when Guinea goes off. And maybe it's because Guinea is so good. Maybe it's a bit harsh. Maybe it's just because Guinea is so effective. But he's out as well, which is even more of a blow for the Rebels.
He might be back in time for the Wallabies, but it's not looking good. If the Wallabies don't have Genia, it's very hard to create anything, again, off Phipps or Jake Gordon or whatever. So he's essential to the Wallabies.
I agree with you, though. It's puzzling as to how a team that, well, I mean, for Australian perspective, is that star-studded. It's got the big names. It's got the game breakers that you'd expect. And like you say, Force did very well off that side. You expected it to all come together very nicely. They started off well, and it's just fallen apart. You'd have to say now it's come down to things like confidence is a big factor for them. Again, we're going back to mental attributes that the Australian teams just don't make. You talked about the Waratahs, decision-making, things like that. There's only one man in that Rebels team that can make a good decision, and that is generally the man in number 9 jumper when he's fit in Guinea.
I still don't rate their 10, 12, 13 combination.
Oh, no.
No.
Debrasini is just rubbish.
Yeah, and then you got Billy Meeks, who Brett thinks is a very good player. I don't think Billy Meeks is a good player at all. And then who's in the 13?
Reece Hodge normally is, isn't he?
Reece Hodge. Yeah. He's a good player. But a lot of people think he's a better 10 than 13, and he's a good fullback and winger. So, I mean, sure, you've still got the likes of Dane Helapeti out, Ross Helapeti out. Will Genia's on the side. Like, wherever's got a ton of injuries, but they've got the depth. Yeah, exactly right. They've got the depth. They should have the depth with the emergence of two sides. It's almost criminal. And I remember you at the start of the season when we did the Aussie Super Rugby preview. You had the Rebels at the top of the table. And we're in the right sort of area. I had the Waratahs at the top and then the Rebels at third. But I think we both sort of overestimated the Brumbies. I'm sure we'll get into them in a second. But Rebels, Dave Wessels needs to get back to what happened at the start of the season. Needs to motivate his crew again. Needs to start saying, we are still in this. We are just outside the 8 now. We're in the 8 for a long time. We can get back up there if we start playing the rugby we did at the start of the season.
Yeah, and they're only 4 points behind the Waratahs. They have played an extra game, but... I mean, the Waratahs are likely going to drop this match versus the Crusaders. Rebels pick it up. They go top of the table by equal points, or if they get a bonus point, by a point. So they're not, you're right, they're not out of it at all. But I think the Rebels fall into probably a similar category as the Sharks at the start of the season. I predicted Sharks to top South Africa because on paper, they have a ridiculously amazing squad. Much like the Rebels have a really, really good squad as well. But they have not transitioned that into performances on the field. And I think going up against the Brumbies, now are a team that have improved as the competition's worn on, have learned of how they're playing, and are probably one of the most improved teams in Australia, do you think, bar the Reds, in terms of from where they started and, the player transitions they've had to where they are now?
Well, obviously, they only won one game last season, so already winning 4 is 400 times better. It's going to take some time with the Rebels still, but they've got to get rid of Debrasini at 10, and they've got to maybe put Jack Maddox in at 10. He's probably about a 10 than he is winger. They're just playing all their players out of position, the Rebels. I don't know. I just think their backline is not where it should be. I mean, you've got Corabetti and Naivalu, and you've got good wingers down there, but the rest of their backline is mediocre at best.
The Brumbies season, that's over. Do you expect them to make any upsets to really shake the apple cart for anyone that's like the Rebels this weekend that are gunning for one of those top spots?
Yeah, honestly, I think the Brumbies, they got David Pocock out again, huge. The Brumbies are pretty much a bunch of no names. I mean, it's disappointing because the Brumbies want Craig Cooper. They've been in contact with the Reds. AIU have tried to get Craig Cooper down to Canberra, but Craig Cooper doesn't want to move because it's in his contract that you just need to be playing club rugby somewhere in Australia and you still get paid $800,000 a year. So, again, Raylan Castle last night on Super Rugby Kick and Chase basically said, if Craig Cooper wants to play for the Wallabies, he's got to be playing Super Rugby. If he wants to be getting paid what he is, just playing club rugby, fine. But surely Craig Cooper wants to challenge himself. Because Howard does nothing. He's done nothing for 2 or 3 years. Still don't know why he's the 10. You're holding probably an Aussie talent from getting and really starting to develop in that 10 jersey. Leilofano's still coming back from injury. And then the rest of their backline's pretty mediocre as well. I mean, I don't know. Brumbies, with their coaching, are just mediocre. I mean, Australian rugby is mediocre. It's mediocre. A lot of mediocrity in Australia. So I do think the Brumbies are going to win this game because the way the Rebels have been playing as of late and their travel and everything is so against them, it's very difficult to see them getting over the line. I think the Brumbies will get up here, but again, the Brumbies' decision-making and overall their entire squad is just not where it should be.
It must be concerning as well for Australian fans, but Brumbies fans as well, when they look at that team. I mean, Kieran Drani's in that side, Henry Spate, guys that were mainstays in the green and gold and game breakers as well, not performing at all, not even making a wave in the competition, just playing as good as any old Bob coming off the bench anywhere in the world. So big issues, I think, for Australian rugby everywhere in their team as they go forward. You're saying the Brumbies are going to win. I'm agreeing with you as well because I've got the Brumbies by 11 to take it over the Rebels.
I got 5.
Oh, we got 5. It's going to be a close one, but the Rebels are just falling apart completely. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Rebels did get up because both these teams have the capabilities to completely lose their marbles as well. So, but yeah, both go with the Brumbies.
It's not going to be an entertaining game of rugby. Let's just say that.
It will definitely be a edit a video while you watch it one for me, I think, while that one's on. Okay, we've still got a couple of games to go through, so let's make our way over to Africa, where the Stormers are up against the Chiefs in Newlands. I mean, the Stormers, there's one thing to say about the Stormers, undefeated at home after 12 rounds. I don't care who's going there. I can't pick against the Stormers.
I'm the same. I mean, I was having this conversation with someone earlier. Very hard to tip against the Stormers in Cape Town because it's a fortress for them, and it's pretty remarkable. Stormers at home, completely different side than they are away from home, and they'll probably sneak into the 8, purely based upon their winning potential. Chiefs again are going to be hurting from the loss to the Juarez. Can we touch on the Juarez before we end the video as well?
Go for it.
We'll talk about the Stormers and Chiefs first, but I want to mention the Juarez because it's been exceptional what they've done.
Yep.
But yeah, Chiefs will be hurting. I'm sure they didn't expect to drop that match against the Juarez. Stormers playing great rugby as well at home. Very hard to tip against them.
Do you think this is probably for the first time in a while we're going to see a New Zealand team touring and actually struggling and not picking up victories like we normally see from South Africa teams coming over to this part of the world?
Exactly right. That's the thing. New Zealand lost a few games in South Africa this year. They seem to win Australia, but not in South Africa. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I've always said I'm not a huge fan of how the Chiefs play. I think they rely too much on their three big players, Retallick, McKenzie, and whoever else is around the environment. Obviously, you've got Sam Cane there as well. But yeah, I think they've got an over reliance on their big three players. Storm is just got a bit more depth in their total squad than the Chiefs do.
Yeah, it was interesting to talk about Sam Cane because he's actually injured and not even going on tour. So he's not going to be part of the big three for the Chiefs. So that's going to be a massive blow for them, a player that they normally rely on so heavily to not be there in the team. The Stormers, I mean, they are, you spoke about it a little bit. I mean, we know the Lions are still creaming the South African Conference, but the Stormers are only 2 points off going into that second place. The Jaguares obviously are on the bye this weekend, so they're not going to play. That could see, potentially, if the Sharks lose, could see the Stormers go up to second and be the team that's challenging the Lions at the top of the table. So this South African Conference is not done by far when you've got 5th place on 20 points and 2nd place on 24. So it's open for anyone if they want to take it.
It's very open for the playoffs. Just like the top of the New Zealand Conference, very, very competitive. I mean, it's the same for Australia. The conference, we can say about the Super Rugby conference system that it is much more competitive this year. Overall table, though, you can see that there's a few variations where the Waratahs technically are in 3rd position on the table. But yeah, I think the African resurgence has been great. And it's great to see some competitive rugby in South Africa because that's what they've been missing for a few years now. And it's great to see them starting to beat New Zealand sides because that's what brings people through the gate. I mean, it was a packed out stadium for, was it Stormers Bulls on the weekend? Was it Stormers Sharks? Packed out.
Yeah, no, Bulls.
Bulls, yeah, it was packed out. It was 25,000 or something, 30,000? Yeah. I don't know what the number is, but I just saw there was a lot of people there. So, yeah, it shows you that people still care about rugby in South Africa, and it shows you that the Stormers are very good at home.
And I think what's really helped the African Conference is the fact that the Jaguares are performing. That's changed it. I mean, normally they'll be down the bottom on 6 points, and the rest of the teams will be on mid-20s and up from there. So I think that's really changed it because it's not a free win. It's not a free trip to Argentina and to get 5 points in your bank. So that's made a big difference. Yeah, we'll talk about them at the end if you've got stuff to say at them. We'll cover our last match, but I'm going Stormers by 8 over the Chiefs.
I'll go Stormers by 13.
Ooh, 13. Yeah,
I don't like how we're agreeing on it. Don't.
Hey, I've been one place off the yellow cap twice in a row now. That's why I've literally got a yellow cap. So, we'll just wear that for the rest of the video. It doesn't work quite on headphones, but alas, we'll take that off. Right, last game of the weekend. We've got the Bulls versus Sharks, a big South African derby here. Yeah. Massive one. I mean, the Bulls have had 2 of these in a week. They played the Sharks. I mean, that was a huge game. They played the Stormers last week. Now they're playing the Sharks this week. A bit of a erratic Sharks team, though, but with the way that they performed last week, have they clicked, the Sharks? Have they finally got things together, or are we just going to see them go cold again after being so hot?
They are the most inconsistent side in the competition by a long way. I don't understand how 1 week they go within 2 minutes of beating the Hurricanes and destroying the Highlanders to losing against the Brumbies and losing against the Rebels. No, doesn't make any sense. Absolutely crazy form from the Durban-based side, and I don't know. It's very hard to explain. I remember last week, I mean, you had Brett absolutely ranting them. What's happened? Is there something in the water in Durban where, I'm feeling good this week and not feeling good the other week or something?
Who knows? I mean, if I knew, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be over in Durban fixing whatever the problem was, because it's such, we talked about it like the Rebels, such a star-studded squad, talented squad, huge potential in the squad, just not performing consistently. But whether it's the way they're playing, or is it just the team not quite gelling together, which was a bit of a criticism that they undertook after pre-season as well, before the season actually kicked off. which is a big thing. But from that match against the Highlanders last week, do you think possibly that the Highlanders, the way they played and how bad they were, because they missed a truck full of tackles and they were pretty average at best, do you think that made the Sharks look possibly a bit better than they actually were in that game?
Yes and no. It's very hard to look into. I didn't actually see the match, so very hard for me to say. I can just say overall, the Sharks can score a try from absolutely nowhere. They've got some of the best offloading in the competition. But they've played quite a few games in a row now as well. So I'm not sure if they'll be getting tired after their trip from New Zealand over and going back. And I forgot when their last bye was. But, yeah, I mean, Sharks will be in it for the rest of the season. They'll definitely make the playoffs. Just not sure if they'll get past the quarters.
So on the Bulls, just finally, before we wrap it up, I mean, the big thing about this Bulls team is their pack. It's mostly about the pack, second row. Keeping the ball alive is a massive thing for this team. Home ground advantage and the pack dominance. Is that going to be the decisive factor in this game?
Well, it's just going to be an absolutely absolute favorite match to watch this weekend. if both teams are going to absolutely destroy each other. The Bulls are, again, another interesting side because they're inconsistent as well. I mean, it's the same for every South African side at the moment. Anyone can be anyone in every given day, so that's what makes it exciting. I'm not really sure what to say about the Bulls because I've only seen their matches of how they played in Australia and New Zealand. They were terrible. They were terrible. So, will the Bulls re-find some form and get over the line here? Not really sure. I think it's a Sharks one to lose here.
Oh, interesting. I found the Bulls, especially like you were right what you say at home. Big difference to the team at home as well. They make a massive change when they're in front of their home fans. But it's so much dependent on how that pack plays. The Ludwiges, those guys are so crucial to this team's performance. And I mean, it started all the way back in round one when they beat the Hurricanes. That is how they can play. And if they do play like that, it makes a massive difference to how the team ultimately performs overall. But yeah, not the best, but I think being at home, being in front of the home crowd should get them humming. What I think will be a big difference in this game will be if that great Sharks attacking backline, likes of Mapimpi, Dupree, those guys who can spark and cause Karabosh, just something to happen from nothing, Nkosi, whoever plays on the wings, that versus what the Bulls offer, and the likes of Jesse Creel, who's very much a different sort of player, but you know what backline is going to win it. If the Bulls can defend and win the game up front, they'll take this match. If they do not defend out wide, it's going to be irrelevant what happens in the pack because the Sharks are just going to run balls back. Are they going to carve them to ribbons if they get a chance? And they will take the game out just scoring tries through that explosive backline. So it's tough, but I mean, this is a 50-50. We've said it 100 times, but I've gone for the Bulls by one.
I've gone to Sharks by one. Make it fun.
He's going the other side of the ledger. Oh, that is exciting.
We can't agree on everything.
No, it's a bit sad, isn't it? I mean, I've watched things about this round early on, and a lot of people saying how it's a tough one to pick. I found it quite easy to pick, but I'm probably going to not, or I'll probably regret saying that on Monday when I get 2 out of 7.
Just like Brett last week, I saw on. What did he get right?
Oh, last week.
And
there was 2 sure things that he got right, and there wasn't much else. Yeah, he had a shocker. He did have a shocker. But I mean, that's how it goes. I mean, it only takes 1 or 2, upset results. I think the Blues. I picked the Blues, which is a big one. That wouldn't have normally happened when you look
surprised
through it.
Surprised you did, to be honest.
Well, I just think mentally that the Waratahs are never going to get up. What were the games? I mean, no one picked the Jaguares to beat the Chiefs.
No.
The Crusaders smashed the Rebels was a given. Blues to beat the Waratahs was a bit of an upset. Hurricanes and Lions was a given.
Pretty much.
Stormers and Bulls, that's a 50-50. Stormers at home, which is why I got that, obviously not. And then where the Highlanders beat the Bulls and then capitulated against the Sharks was another one that didn't go the way most people thought. So
do you go Highlanders or Sharks that week?
I did go Highlanders by a whisker. I was impressed by how they beat the Bulls. I watched that game and they played phenomenally well, but terrible following that up. So yeah, a disappointing one. But before we wrap up, You wanted to talk about the Hug Warriors. Go for it.
Yes. No, what do you... Is this finally the whole Warriors team we've been missing from the comp for the last 2.5 years? Is it finally coming out? They are a welcome addition to Super Rugby, unlike the Sunwolves. 4 wins in Australasia is ridiculous. I don't think a touring side has done that in a long time, beating the likes of the Chiefs, the Chiefs, the Blues, the Rebels, and who's the other side? The Brumbies?
Brumbies.
Was it Brumbies? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
They're 4 very big wins on the road. So, are they going to back that up when all the teams start going to Argentina again? I hope they do. Very welcome bye for the Warriors now. It'll be great to see them in some playoff rugby as well. I cannot wait to see them go, because this is a national side. This is what they should have been doing for the first couple of seasons. Mario Ledesma has gotten the team together. Nicolas Sanchez playing some great rugby. Colette, Ortega Desio. They've got absolutely star-studded front row, back line. This is what we should be getting from the whole Warriors, and it's great to see them coming into their own. But I don't know if after 2020, if Super Rugby is continuing down the route that it is, will the Warriors still be in the competition, or are they going to be in a South American professional league? It's very hard to say.
I mean, who knows what the competition is going to be like after 2020? It could cease to exist. There won't be any teams in it whatsoever. That's going to be a massive discussion for years, I guess, until they do make a decision. But this team, I think 2 things have changed the Jaguares this year. Coaching staff, which you've already mentioned, the likes of Ledesma and his cohorts there have made a big difference to this team. But what has made another big difference is the fact that just because you play for the Jaguares in Super Rugby doesn't mean you're going to play for the Pumas or Argentina, because they can pick anyone from anywhere they like now. So in previous years, yes, you're pretty much guaranteed playing for the Jaguares that you're going to play for Argentina. Now not so much, which has put massive pressure on those guys there and opened the door for these other guys. So it has made them raise their game, because let's be fair, the way they played Super Rugby in recent years, most of those guys probably don't deserve on form to be picked for the Argentinian side, which now that changes. If you're not performing, we'll just go to France or England or wherever and pick these other guys that are doing the job and put them in the role instead.
They have so much talent in Europe that their policy was absolutely ridiculous. Sure, I would have understood it if they had 2 or 3 professional teams, but they didn't. They had 1 professional team, so you can't have a national team of 1 professional team. Do you think there'll be a threat around World Cup time, or will their pool of death be too much of them?
Yeah, well, they're in a tough pool, but I think this Argentinian side is good. I've been saying it for years. Last World Cup, a really good team. And, I mean, on paper, like we talk about the Sharks and all that already before, but these guys should perform. And this is what we've expected. And I think the reason they only selected from Super Rugby for the Argentinian team is so that players wanted to play Super Rugby, so that they could bring in the best players. That was the thought behind it, but it hasn't really worked out that way. And they've still got that quality, but now they don't have to have that restriction when it comes to international time. And I think, yeah, there's too much quality in that team, even that Jaguares team by itself. The way that players like Boffelli are playing in that back line, ridiculous. You've talked about all those other guys, the Materas, the Senatores, the back row. The Creevy is just, that guy's a freak of nature. A legend of the game, in my opinion, whenever he decides to hang up his boots. But it's too much good talent, and I would not put them past beating anyone on their day in a World Cup.
It's going to be tough for them. England and France, both very difficult teams to play against.
But I mean, France are just about hiring every single New Zealand player or ex-All Black that they can. I mean, how does France develop a team when 40% of the teams are filled with former New Zealand players?
Doesn't matter. They bloody beat England, and they did it quite convincingly.
True. But can they back that up next year? Exactly
right. Exactly right. It's going to take a year or so for the France to get back into it. It's going to be an interesting World Cup. 500 days away as of a couple of days ago, so not too far now.
500 must be time for a bit of another recap of predictions. Maybe after June internationals.
Potentially.
Potentially. Right, I think we've gone on far too long enough as it is already, so we'll wrap things up there. finally, I know it's been a while. People might have forgotten who you are. Tell them what you can see. I know you've been just recently today, as we record this, given Phil Lau joining in with the boot on him and on the channel. So what can people find there?
I'm doing much more controversial rugby topics now. Rugby gaming's not really topical at the moment, so you've got to stay relevant. And having a YouTube channel for 6 years now, got to stay as relevant as possible, or not going to get anything. So, talking about rugby more now, trying to make that transition over. We still do rugby games when that comes out, but my God, what has happened to rugby games? I don't know. I mean, I still see you doing the Global Rugby Manager, but yeah, there's no rugby challenge from you at the moment. There's no rugby 18.
A little bit of rugby challenge still going. I've still got the subscriber series ticking away on there, which is good for people who follow the channel. So I don't know, we're still ticking away, but yeah, you're right. Rugby gaming is a very, very, very slow topic, so I don't blame you. That's the way to go. Back onto the thing. So go check out the Scottish Cannon. Obviously, if you haven't, I mean, if you watch my channel or not his, then I'm shocked and surprised. So go check him out and drop him a sub as well to get his thoughts and opinions following up from this. But that is it for today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next time for round, what'll it be, 14. Until then, thanks for watching, and take care.